Hey, what is going on, guys? This is SMEB Reviews, and today we are taking a look at the 5th studio album from Justin Timberlake, Man of the Woods. Let's get to it. This album is so incredibly disjointed. There is so much wrong with it. And honestly, just starting off, let's take a look at the genre. I can't really name a good genre. There's a lot of that tropical style music, a lot of a little hip-hop leaning, pop leaning, a song or two that I could maybe say are a little country leaning, which that's a problem in its own right. I'll touch on it real quick. It's that this album with names like Man of the Woods or Livin' Off the Land, you think that these songs are going to be very country sounding, and it's okay that it's not, but when you have a song called Man of the Woods, you don't really anticipate like electronic beats. That's not what you think of when you're thinking of the woods, and that is one problem that I will get to and touch on even more later. But that's one thing, how you kind of expected a little country or acoustic-y sounds, and instead we got electronic beats on some of these songs. But the genres are so messed up. The production is probably some of the worst production I've ever heard. Most of the production is done either by Timbaland, the Neptunes, or Timberlake himself, and goodness, there are a couple other producers, but it's the fact that three of them were working on it, the three main were working on it, it really probably messed this up a little bit because there's so many different styles that we're trying to fit into this project. But that being said, that does not mean that each song itself is so well produced. The songs themselves each have so many disjointed parts. Take Filthy, the lead single. You start off with this song that sounds like it could be kind of a rock song, and honestly I was really excited when I started it, and then we enter this completely disjointed part that doesn't sound like it fits at all with the beginning section, and that's not the only song that does it. There's many songs that do have these little disjointed sections. Flannel even has a second section that doesn't seem to fit at all with the beginning. And that happens throughout the album, let alone just weird production choices like little vocal samples setting that either repeat throughout the whole song or are trying to develop the beat, and it does not work. The production is probably the biggest problem on this album. It just kills this album because every song just either has too many random elements thrown in there or just doesn't work. It has some weird stuff like weird, very loud basses or really big sounding drum machines, and it just doesn't work. Like sometimes Timberlake's really pushed to the back of the mixing. I mean, even in Filthy, he's pushed way to the back of the mixing and lets the music take control, and that's just another weird thing with production. The production is all over the place and absolutely kills this album because so many weird choices were made throughout the entire thing. I will admit that I personally don't think Timberlake's the best vocalist, and let me defend myself. I think he has a very good high range, and I do think he can hit those high notes really well, but he doesn't have any grit or power in his lower register, and that's a problem, and it's something that doesn't get balanced out well with the music, so it kind of leaves everything feeling a little airy and a little too high, and it doesn't ever really have that really deep thing drawing it in, and that's just one little thing that does bother me. And there's nothing pulling it down. Everything seems to be really high and really clean, especially. When I say this, even with all the weird production choices, it's also incredibly clean. And that's just kind of weird, again, coming from songs that are like Livin' Off the Land, where, he's talking about living off the land and not buying things and just hunting or gathering, anything like that. And you don't think of cleanness when you think of that. It's just the imagery that these songs evoke does not correlate at all with the music. Because as I said, Man of the Woods, you think of an acoustic guitar, maybe country elements, that kind of thing. I wouldn't mind if there were some other things. It didn't just have to be an acoustic song by any means, but you expect stuff like that. Whereas what we get is a very strange song that has a lot of electronic beats and stuff, and it's just that none of the actual content in the music seems to correlate at all with the music itself, the instrumentation. Now, some of these songs do have a really nice shell, I'd say. It's either the sound or the melody that's being created sounds really good, but then there's either a weird line here or a weird production choice, or the bass is too large in the track. or the content doesn't match with the instrumentation. That's what I'm talking about. Some of these songs actually aren't bad. Some of them are kind of interesting, and I wouldn't probably mind them. I mean, I'm not saying this would be a perfect album without those elements, but it would definitely be a more positive rating and review in general. But I can't. It's just small things that will always bring these tracks down. And not even small things. Sometimes it is bigger things, but sometimes a song that did have potential just gets torn down because of some small element that completely destroys the song, such as Living Off the Land or Man of the Woods, which I do keep touching on. I will touch on more in just a minute, but those are two that are excellent examples of how they clearly evoke that country imagery, and then the instrumentation does not at all. The first half of the album is just bad, and the second half, well, there's nothing really to talk about with it. I made notes on each song, and I really, for the most part, most of the second half didn't really interest me too much. I didn't have much to say about it. And the first half I just found bad. I mean, Filthy I've talked about a ton, either in this video or in the single video. It's just so disjointed, and his voice is mixed way into the back. He mentions the lyrics are just dumb in general. I absolutely hated that song. That song alone just encompasses so many things wrong with this album, and it follows through throughout the whole album. Midnight Summer Jam just repeats over and over constantly. Timberlake's in the back singing I Glow, and that gets extremely, extremely obnoxious. Let alone the bass is way too overpowering in this. It's just repetitive and not that interesting. And this is a song where I talk about it has a good shell. Honestly, if you took out the I Glow and probably toned back the bass sounds a little bit, it would be alright. I honestly would think it'd be a decent song. Probably not my favorite or anything, but it would be passable at least. But when you add those small little things, it kills the album. It kills the song, and that's what I'm talking about with multiple of the songs. Now, despite what I've said about Man of the Woods, it honestly is pretty catchy. Despite its mess up in the imagery and the content, it's fine. It's still an okay song, which is sad that I have to accept songs like that as an okay song, but I'll accept it. It is just undeniably catchy. I gotta hand it to it. Same for Higher Higher. I honestly don't mind that song too much. It's not my favorite again, but I can handle it. It's an acceptable song. Those two are two of the probably only passable songs on the album. Supplies is another example of that spoken word that just ruins a song and makes it sound weird. On this one, it's just weird vocal samples to create a beat, and it doesn't work. The song itself, I don't really enjoy too much, but it just gets extremely grating to hear those vocal samples continue throughout the whole track. Say Something features Chris Stapleton, and this is one of the tracks I actually think is good, not just alright or passable. It's actually very good. I do like this track. And it's because of Chris Stapleton. He brings that grit to the lower register, and not that either of them really go too low in the song, but brings a little texture to the voice when there's absolutely nothing in this whole album. It's just so clean, and then this brings a little texture to it. I actually really do like it. The harmonies are good. The melody is great. I really do like this song. It is a good song. One of the only ones on the album. The Hard Stuff, it's another good song. It does sound like it would fit on a country-sounding album. It actually sounds rather country, and I do like it. I don't have much to say, but it actually does sound like it fits on this album. And this is just, this album just is so all over the place, because every one of those songs, I didn't touch on their individual genres, because as I said, it's so unfocused. Some of these are very poppy, or little country, or hip-hop, or a little island sound. It's all over the place, and I can't put a genre on this because of that lack of focus. Honestly, on a first listen, I didn't mind this album too much. I was like, hey, this is better than I expected it to be. Once I got to the fourth, fifth listen, I was done with it. All of the things, the little small things that I was like, oh, it won't bother me, it really got to me by the end of it. Like I said, those weird vocal samples, the weird choices, the weird production. That production, it kills the album. Honestly, I think if it wasn't for the production, it may be a little better. But the production kills it. This is going to get the lowest rating I've given to an album at this point in my career. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. What did you guys think of this album? Do you think it's better than I saw it? I just really cannot get into this album. I don't think that there's really much redeeming qualities. There are a couple songs that are alright or passable. Besides Say Something, there's just nothing good on this album, and most of it's just absolutely awful. But what did you guys think? Please let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.